Thanks everyone for joining this afternoon. I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. What I wanted to do is just spend a little time talking about Xanita Board and how it can be used to create modular spaces. We've all seen in the news the need for modular spaces. Xanita Board is a great application for that. We'll walk through what that is. But first of all, I wanted to start with a little video that just shows you how a traditional manufacturing space, an open space, has been transformed into a temporary partitions. So you've got temporary partitions, you've got different types of beds that you can see here, and it's a matter of building from one type of modular structure to another. Some are more complex than the other, some are more robust than the other. All of these things you're seeing here were constructed out of Xanita Board and are used in the context of an open space. So with that type of technology, that type of capability, it's something that you can do into any open space or anywhere there's a need for temporary or modular spacing. Okay. What we'll talk about today is just some different types of structures you can create. Here you see again the partitions, you see different types of beds. We've got a variety of different types of things that can be used in creating modular spaces for a variety of different types of industries, and that's what we're going to talk about. But what I want to first start with is the fact that what you see structured on the right there actually ships in flat on a pallet that you see on the left. So that pallet is about 8 inches high, and it contains all the boards to make the two partitions that you see on the right, as well as the bed. The nice thing about it is it ships in, and within about 30 minutes, we had that structure up, and it only took 2 people to put it together. So it's very easy to transport, it's very easy to assemble in different types of configurations. When we talk about Xanita Board, the nice thing about it, the fact that you can create a 1-room partition or you can create a 6-room partition. If you notice the diagram on the right is a full-blown 6-room partition where you've got shelving units, you've got small workstations, you've got beds, and you've got rather robust walls that are used to separate each of those different rooms. They're all made out of Xanita Board. On the left-hand side, you've got more of a privacy type of temporary partition or modular space that could be used for a variety of different types of things. Again, all made out of Xanita Board. So we're talking about how do you use Xanita Board to create semi-permanent rooms and partitions, depending on what you need. But what's nice about Xanita Board is the fact that you can integrate it with other material and other support mechanisms that you may need. So for example, if you need to install airflow units, if you need something as simple as a hand sanitizer station, you can create those. You can actually mount the hand sanitizer station right to the Xanita Board itself. Do you need to run electrical power in there? Do you need to have lighting? Do you need to have some sort of windows in there? You can put plexiglass windows into this material. Do you need to set up some sort of workstation or call station? You can do all that in the confines of these temporary and modular partitions. So what are we talking about in terms of different types of options? So I just laid out probably about 8 or 9 different things that would be used in modular construction. The first one on the left here includes partitions and beds that I showed you earlier. Each of those rooms is about 9 foot by 9 foot by about 8 feet tall. And again, as I mentioned, you can do different configurations. But that full room structure where you've got 6 different rooms, 6 different beds, bookcases, workstations, that is all made out of Xanita Board. It's about 70 boards. So just over a skid of Xanita material, and you've got 6 different temporary custom modular solutions. The bed in each one of those is about 3 boards. Again, it's about 7 foot by 3 foot by 2 foot. What's nice about the bed, it's been load tested where it holds up to, or I should say, 584 pounds or greater. We've done that load testing with it. So Xanita Board is very durable and strong, but lightweight and flexible. Different types of shelving units. The one here is it's a thin shelving unit, about 2 boards. The small workstation on the right is about 1 board. In fact, you could probably put 2 of those up on one board itself. Different types of modular units. The hand sanitizer unit, again, 2 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot, it's about 1 board. The dump bin is kind of a unique thing because it's got a little top that you can remove. This could be used as a bin to throw different types of garb or utensils or different things that you've used in that space, and then take it out and dispose of it properly. But that's about 1 board. The storage unit here is a nice, robust cubicle type unit, 6 foot by 6 foot by about 2, and that would take about 3 Xanita boards to do.
Mike, we have a question.
Yes, Guru.
The question is, are there cut files for all of these different configurations?
Yes, there are cut files that exist right now for different types of partitions, the beds, the bookcases, storage units, dump bins, and the hand sanitizer. They're all available from Xanita. So in essence, they've all been tested before. In fact, many of the images you've seen here are the prototypes that Xanita actually built and put on their work floor. So they've all been tested, functional, they go together, and they support the weight that's necessary. And then the last thing is the bookcase. Just different sizes bookcase. This one's about 3 boards. The nice thing about this, if there's a different design or style, those can be easily created. In fact, on Xanita's website, there's probably 100 different types of storage units that could be used. And you can mix and match and build out the room as necessary. These are just representative of some of the cut files and some of the units that are available from a modular construction point of view. Most of what we've talked about so far showed you pertains to medical, temporary partitions, beds, workstations, etc. But we should all be thinking about long-term in terms of modular construction and beyond medical. As people start getting back into the office, back into the manufacturing site, there's going to be needs for other sort of partitions, dividers in the workspace. So all of these different units that we've showed here, another nice thing about them is they don't require any tools to assemble them. They're simply assembled with bolts, nuts, washers, maybe a tie rod, and maybe some book screws to give it extra support. But you need no tools to put these together. I mentioned earlier how quick and easy it was to assemble these. This is why the cut files give you all of the cuts, they drill all the holes in there for you. All you have to do is put it together and then use bolts and nuts, and you've got a nice modular structure. So we talk about creating modular structures with Xanita Board, and that can be anything from partitions. Here's some examples of single or multiple partitions that are really designed from a social distancing point of view or for medical separation. They could be different sizes. They could be full walls. They could be partial walls. They could be things that are constructed on the manufacturing workstation to separate different segments of the manufacturing line. Different types of beds that are available. And you see here, this one is a little bit more complex than some of the other ones. In fact, that it sits up at a 45-degree angle. So you can make that adjustment to it. Tables, shelves, temporary medical spaces. And as we've kind of alluded to, office modular layouts will be required. So office dividers, return to work check-in, those types of things.
Mike, we have a question. Someone wants to know if it can actually be cleaned in any way.
So that's a great question. I was going to cover that later, but let me address it now. So all of the Xanita Board surfaces can be disinfected, can be cleaned. The moisture-proof liner on Xanita Board specifically allows that. So you can take a spray bottle with disinfectant or water, wipe it clean, and that will take care of that. The other option, if there's a more heavily trafficked area, a more heavily area that needs more robust cleaning, I guess, you could always laminate that surface and use that to protect the board and do more deep cleaning. So there's a couple different options depending on where you're going to use it. That's a good question. Thank you. So as we think about going forward, who's going to need some of this modular space? Obviously, there's a need from a medical point of view. But again, it's not just emergency medical. Think about it in terms of long terms where medical clinics are going to have to put up different types of partitions and dividers and waiting areas. Nursing homes, the Red Cross to separate blood donating stations, but also think about homeless shelters. This is not something that's just used in medical from a crisis point of view. This could be used on a regular, ongoing basis in homeless shelters where now you can provide a simple partition from a privacy point of view to the residents that are there. Office workspace, manufacturing stations, schools and libraries are going to have to think about how they do things differently, how they keep the crowds down to smaller sizes and have separations. So Xanita Board's a great solution for that. Testing centers, restaurants, and then training centers of different types will need to figure out how to create modular space going forward. And in the final, of course, is state and local governments, as well as the federal government agencies. They have needs for this as well, whether it be turnkey disaster relief structures, where I mentioned earlier that everything can ship in on a pallet, can be stored for later usage, and quickly put up where need be. That's a great solution for Xanita Board. Standing organizations such as immigration, such as the military, National Guard, they all need, and they're going to have to figure out some way to do partitions and modular spacing. And of course, don't forget about state and local, state fair medical tents, for example. This summer, depending what goes on there may be some needs, but local government as well as state and federal government will all be in need of modular different types of spaces. And hopefully you've seen the flexibility associated with Xanita Board and able to fill many of those different needs.
So Mike, one of the things I know we had talked about was the fact that it's not only lightweight as far as shipping and, you know, sending it to different places, but a lot of those organizations that you and industries that you had just shown in your previous slide, you know, they could very easily, National Guard, Red Cross, they could have to pick up on a moment's notice and have to go elsewhere. So they could reuse these over and over again, right? They could just actually pack it up and ship it, and it would, because it's sturdy, it would go.
That's absolutely correct, Crew. There's two benefits you just mentioned there associated with Xanita Board. The first is the fact that it's light. So it's light from a transportation point of view. It's light and easy to assemble. Once it's assembled, it's light and easy to move around. And the second point you made, Crew, was around reusability. So Xanita Board is basically made out of recycled paper. So it's completely recyclable. So one, when you're done with it, you could recycle it as you would any paper product. But to Crew's point, it's something that you can tear down, put back on the pallet, and ship to the next location. And not just one use, but multiple uses. So whether it be something that you're using for a modular lab, or something that the military or National Guard's using on a regular basis from one location to the other, Xanita Board can very easily be disassembled, packed back up, and then reused again.
Yep, exactly. We have another question here. Someone wanted to know, particularly there's, I guess, the two bed designs. So when you would reference the weight limit or what they had been tested at 525 pounds, was that for both the reclining one and the other one that looked more like a bench? Do you know? So
the bench is the one specifically load tested for 584 pounds. The reclining bench actually is a little bit higher than that. Xanita did that testing, but Crew, I don't have that number right off the top of my head, but I will get it. But let's just say it was more than 600 pounds load test.
Okay.
Because you've got all that support when it's laying flat, and then when you stand it up, you've got the back brace, which is made out of Xanita board. And keep in mind, Xanita board can hold up to 5.6 tons per square foot before it crushes. So it's really a strong product and designed from a load bearing point of view.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So some of the other things about Xanita board and why this is a great solution for modular construction is we've touched on the fact that it's lightweight and easy to move, whether it be a simple board or a fully constructed bed or wall or something like that. It's easy to move. The biggest board that Xanita makes, and I'll get to that in a second, is less than 20 pounds. So pretty much anybody can move one of these boards around. It is lightweight, but it's also rugged, durable, crush resistant, and designed to be a load bearing type of product. From a shelving point of view, from a weight point of view, you can mount things on these walls like TVs, and it can hold that weight up. Xanita board, as I said, is made out of paper. It's 100% recyclable. There's no PVC, there's no plastics, there's no woods, there's no metal that's required in any of these structures other than the metal associated with the nuts and bolts. And when you're done, it's a completely recyclable product. Or as we just talked about, it's completely reusable. All of these structures that you saw in these images and others that Xanita has available on their website are easy to assemble, and that means no tools are required. And in many cases, they just tongue and groove and they slot together and you can assemble them that way. Because of the construction of the Xanita board with the core as well as the liner, it does provide acoustic dampening properties. So those little modules, in addition to giving you privacy and separation, will also give you some sound dampening properties. We've touched on whether it can be disinfected or not, and I explained two different options there. One is just basically the surface itself with its moisture-proof liner, or laminating for more robust, in-depth cleaning. Another great thing about Xanita board is in all of the images that I've shown you so far, they've all just been the white Xanita print white liner. Xanita board is direct printable, so those surfaces could be printed, whether it be for color coding from a medical point of view, whether it be graphics or logo from a corporate point of view, or just simply artwork that you want to put on some of these walls or structures. You can do that directly on Xanita boards. So you print, you cut, and then you assemble. If you need to add electrical, lighting, that's all possible, integration with other material. And then the bottom line is any of these configurations can be made into a custom configuration. If you want different size rooms, if you want different types of tables, bookshelves, unit trees, things like that.
Mike, we have another question. Can I use wood screws to assemble?
So you're not actually screwing the metal screw into Xanita board. You're actually taking a bolt and running it through two holes that hold it together. But if you wanted to screw something into Xanita board, yes, you could do that. Depending on the thickness of the board, you could screw a wood screw in there and hang something from that as well. And I want to say it's probably about 50 pounds of flex strength, or before the nail's going to pull out. I've got those specs, I just don't have it to tip of my tongue. But yes, you can screw into the board itself.
Also, looks like we have a question with regard to LED lights. So I guess in particular with the rooms that are being created, is it possible to mount an LED light directly to those walls?
Yes, you could mount them to the walls, or you could embed them in the walls. And what I mean by that is in the surface, you can cut out a spot, put your LED structure in there, and then run the electrical in between the walls and out to the electrical. So there's different ways you can integrate LED lighting into Xanita board structures.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So as we talked about from a Xanita board, 100% recyclable, lightweight. You can see the construction here that makes it unique and different. It's what we call closed cell structure. So those cells that make up the core is where it gets all of its strength. They're very tight, they're very close. That's what's giving it its crush strength, but also its ability to be flexible when you do different types of V-cuts, as you see here in the picture. The board itself, the core, the liner, the resin, the adhesive, everything that's in Xanita board contains no VOC, so it's non-toxic. We mentioned the fact that it's flat packable and direct printable. So Xanita board is a great sustainable product in itself, but it's strong enough to allow you to build load-bearing three-dimensional structures. And you can see through different types, multiple V-cuts, single V-cuts, forming right angles, you can create a wide variety of different structures with Xanita board. And that liner and that core are going to allow that V-cut to stand up over and over again without it crumbling or losing any of its strength. So we've talked a lot about what Xanita board can do, but let's talk a little bit about what is it. There are really two product ranges here. One of them we call Xanita Print, and that's the one you saw in most of these images. It's the white liner with the craft core. The other is Xanita Craft. That's a craft liner with the same craft core. So the core is identical. The only difference is the liner. One of them is a white printable liner. The other one is a craft printable liner. Obviously, the white is going to give you better print quality because it's more of a coated surface. There are two thicknesses associated with it. 10 millimeter, which is about 3/8 of an inch, or 16 millimeter, which is about 5/8 of an inch. All of the images that I've showed you here and all of the cut files that we have from a modular construction point of view are for 16 millimeter, just to give you that extra strength. Two board sizes, a 4x8 and a 4x10.
Mike, there is a question. someone asking about, can the board be curved?
That's a great question, and absolutely the board can be curved. That's one of the unique things about Xanita Board is you can actually make a curved surface, whether it be a podium or a tasting table or a round stool that you'll sit on. And actually at the very end here, I'm going to show you how that's done if we can just hold that till then. So then just what do you need to use Xanita Board to its max potential? To print and to cut and to make all these three-dimensional structures. It's rather very simple, and I would imagine that most of you have these right now. A flatbed printer, UV latex flatbed printers work great for Xanita Board, and then a digital flatbed cutter with the V-knife tool and the oscillating knife. If you have both of those tools, you can do all of these things that I showed you from a Xanita Board application point of view. So those are the two essentials, the printer and the cutter with the correct tools. If you have a 3D industrial designer on staff, that's even better because then you can start doing all of these designs and creating them yourself. But if you don't have a 3D industrial designer or don't have time to do it, don't worry about that because Xanita has tools and resources that will help you with that. And that's what I want to talk about now, just some of the resources that are provided by Xanita. The first really is what we call the cut file store. If you were just to Google Xanita cut file store, you will come to the cut file store landing page. And what that is there's probably about 200 plus cut files that are already demonstrated, designed, load tested, and available for anybody in the world to buy. I'm showing you an example of one of them, which is a bulk storage rack. What's nice about the cut file store is you can search for different categories. So if you're looking to do something from a commercial fit out point of view, if you're looking to do something from a POP point of view, exhibitions, they have a search function where if you typed in bookcases or shelving unit or partitions, different things would come up. The cut file itself is the actual cut file in an AI format, so Acrobat Illustrator format. But what's nice about it, it gives you the dimensions of the product. It gives you the material. In this case, it's a Xanita board, print 16 millimeter, and it gives you the board uses. So this is 4 boards of the 4x8. Now, unfortunately, it's in metrics right now, but a quick conversion will get you that dimensions very quickly. So this is a great resource. And what's nice about this is, like I mentioned, it's a great way to start Xanita board. If you've never used Xanita board, go to the cut file store, download one of the cut files, and you can start working on it. My recommendation, this is a great way to get started, is to get with the digital color ink team, buy a couple boards, tell them which cut file you want to use, and Xanita will send you that cut file at no charge. Again, something to get you going, print it, cut it, put your logo on it, get in the hands of your salespeople, make up a mock for a potential customer. That's exactly what we want you to do with this, to be comfortable with it and use this cut file and put it to actually good use and hopefully start the sales cycle for you. Okay. If after you're comfortable using Xanita board, you've done some cut files, you've had some traction, and you want to take it a step further and maybe modify one of the cut files or do a custom design for one of your customers, Xanita board will help you with that if you don't have the design capability. And again, that's something that you just work through the digital coloring team, and they would help manage that with us and with Xanita board. And you can see different things that they've done here down in the bottom, a double thick partition versus a single partition. If you're on the Xanita website, you'll know that there's a great many different things that you can do with Xanita board. Somebody had to design them. Xanita designed them all, so they know how to design things. The only thing you would need to provide from your client is maybe a render, a sketch, dimensions, how it's going to be used, and Xanita can go forward from there. Step 1, get a cut file, get some boards, get the cut file, get it in the hands of your salespeople. Step 2, start building some custom features for your customers. So I'm going to pause here real quick and see if there are any additional questions that I can answer for you.
If you do have any questions, please go ahead right now if you could and type it into the Q&A, and we'll be glad to have Mike answer for you. While we're waiting, Mike, I just wanted to comment, you know, a lot of times, these, let's just say National Guard or Samaritan's Purse or any of those organizations are out there, and in come all these heavy beds and everything they're trying to set up in these tent structures, and it could be a hurricane relief, anything like that. It's tough for certain people to physically move these things around, like beds and tables and things like that. But with Xanita board, I mean, a 4x8 16 millimeter, isn't it only about 26 pounds?
It's that crew. It's actually less than that. It's probably about 18, 17 pounds.
Okay. So the
4x, yeah, absolutely. The 4x10 board is 20 pounds. And it's easy for anybody to move these things around.
Yeah. So I would think broken down into pieces, that could be very easy, even for a small framed female to be out there trying to assemble and put these things together. We have
yes.
Another question here. Does the product have an expected life in high humidity environments? Just thinking about long-term storage between hurricanes.
Sure. That's a great question. So Xanita has done some extensive humidity testing on the product. The moisture-resistant liner has basically allows it to pass that ASTM test for high humidity. They basically have taken for 2 days, put it in a high humidity, high temperature room, and there's been no distortion associated with it, no delamination, no curl, no fungal growth, none of the structural points of the board or the physical points of the board have been deteriorated in high humidity. So that's a nice thing about it, where you can put it up in a high humidity environment. Think about like a grocery store vegetable produce section where you're spraying stuff, a cooler, or in long-term storage where you're just keeping the board. Keep in mind, Xanita board is actually manufactured in Cape Town, South Africa. It's very hot and humid there in the summer, and they have product on the floor all summer long. Humidity is not going to be a problem with Xanita board.
Also, someone wants to know, are all the cut files on the Xanita cut file store, have they been verified as usable and functional?
Yes, all the cut files that are on the store have been tested in market by Xanita, and they are functional, and they come with instructions on how to put them together.
Also, just to add to that, Mike, I know we've both experienced this and some projects where, Xanita did have to get their designers involved. In most cases, they actually built whatever the structure was that we were trying to create, and they tested it to make sure before the cut file was even sent over to the customer. Isn't that correct?
Correct. So all of the cut files that Xanita produces before it goes into the hands of a customer to demo or to use, they've created a prototype in their facility to make sure that it's functional according to what it needs to be done. So as I mentioned, there's probably 200 plus cut files on the cut file store right now. In addition to that, Xanita probably has hundreds of other ones that they've used in other different markets and different applications. So they have quite a bank of tested, certified cut files.
There is a question also about, is any non-branded marketing graphics materials that this particular person can use to let their clients know? I would say, yes, probably the easiest thing to do would be for you to just contact Digital Coloring directly, and we can work with you and Quinn in marketing to try to provide you with graphic images or anything that you may need to help support you with this. So just contact us here, Digital Coloring. And then there's another question here also. Are both the craft and the print liners moisture resistant? So
the print liner is the one that they've done all the testing on. The craft liner, they have not tested that. And because it's a craft liner, I would not recommend it in a high humidity environment.
I've had some great questions.
Okay, well, so I appreciate that. And if there's any other questions that you think of, we've still got a few more slides here to go. But what I wanted to do is just kind of get back to the question somebody asked about, can you bend Xanita board? Can you curve it? So our next session that we're going to do around Xanita board is going to be around Xanita board you know, taking you to the next level of retail and three-dimensional design with Xanita Board. Here's some examples of the things we'll be talking about. You can see in the bottom that there's a lot of curved surfaces. Not only that, the LED lights are embedded in there. Up in the top, you can see how it's actually used for decorative shop fitting in some cases and in different types of freestanding units. So we'll talk about some of those next time, but I really just wanted to come back to the fact of you can curve Xanita Board. That's one of the unique things about it. You'll see the podium on the left-hand side here. I'm going to show you another quick video that shows you how you actually bend or curve Xanita Board. And it's rather simple. You start with a surface cut on the liner. You use a standard heat gun, which reactivates the adhesive on the face of the liner. Once you pull that adhesive off, now you have the flexibility of the board. What's nice, though, is even though you've removed that liner, you still have not compromised the strength of Xanita Board. And you can now curve it into different shapes, whether it be for podiums, tasting tables, or different things like this. We'll talk about some of the uses next time of Xanita Board in this type of market.